Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video from me, Pickles Park Reviews. Now I'm starting to get rather worried about the RTD era 2 because every rumour that seems to be coming out about this era seems like it's just going to be a repeat of the 2005 to 2010 Russell T Davies era. And for anybody who watched my reaction to the announcement that Russell T Davies will be coming back to showrunner Doctor Who in 2023, you'd know that that is something I absolutely do not want. In my opinion, Doctor Who is a show all about change. It's about a show always moving forward, and on the surface, the choice of RTD becoming showrunner once again and returning to the role seems as if it's stunting Doctor Who's growth. It's saying that Doctor Who is now not able to move on as it has always been, and now it must go back to what it was, which in my opinion is very much completely against what the show has always been about. And it's sort of the BBC admitting that they don't have confidence or faith in themselves that they can get someone in who can do as good a job as the people who have worked on the show before. That for me was the big feeling about RTD returning, and it's why that video ultimately was rather a negative take on the whole situation. Now, in the months since, I have warmed up to the idea of RTD coming back because people have said that this isn't the same RTD that left Doctor Who after the end of Time Part 2. This is a Russell T Davies who was, matured in that time and, gained more writing experience and just more ideas in general. He's had hit TV shows like Years and Years and It's a Sin. And this is a very different Russell T Davies to the one that left, and a Russell T Davies full of different ideas. And lots of people are saying that if you think Russell T Davies will come back and just completely do what he did before, then you don't know Russell T Davies. And lots of people saying that Russell T Davies is a good enough writer to completely do something different with this new era. He wouldn't come back if he was going to rehash it. Were the reasons that I sort of thought, I don't know about that, is in my opinion, and I don't know if it's the same for all you guys, but I think every Doctor Who fan has a very specific take on what they think Doctor Who is. They have a very specific formula of what they think Doctor Who is at its best, and if you gave the showrunner job to them, they would create a very certain flavour of Doctor Who, and every fan's flavour of what they think Doctor Who should be would be different. For example, I know Lord Slar would probably go back to 6-part Supremacy and, make it a very classic series based. I imagine Harbo would probably take on more of the ideas of the later Moffat years. Myself, I would probably be very similar to Moffat and do very much story arc based and lots of time bending shenanigans, because that's just what I like in media in general. I would have a Doctor who is very similar to the Smith Doctor, because that is sort of what I identify as the perfect sort of Doctor and the sort of personality and character that I like personally. So you see, everyone has their sort of flavour of what they think Doctor Who should be, and that's very much the same for showrunners. And that's why it was a bit like, can Russell T Davies do a completely new take on Doctor Who? Because his take of what he thinks Doctor Who should be is Doctor Who 2005 to 2010. So can you really do that? Can you do a completely new take on Doctor Who and it be something that you fully believe in as much as what he did in 2005? And I do debate whether he can do that. Another reason why I was particularly skeptical on whether it will be such a shake-up is that I feel as if the reason Russell T Davies is coming back to Doctor Who and the reason the BBC have chosen him to come back to Doctor Who are two very different reasons. So I feel like, yes, Russell T Davies would want to have another crack at it. He's got lots of different ideas and wants to take the show in a completely different direction and explore completely different areas of the show that he sort of negated to cover in his original era. But I feel as if the reason the BBC have decided to bring him back is very much of, let's recreate his first era, because that was popular, that was successful, that was when it was big and people loved it, so let's try and bring that back. And that's why we're bringing back the guy who made that, to get more of that, because that was popular and that was when the show was at its best in the eyes of the BBC and the public. So ultimately I feel as if there are very different reasons as to why Rusty Davies decided to come back and why the BBC hired him, and ultimately I do sort of wonder how much power RTD will have in order to implement his ideas, because I feel as if the BBC will very much be wanting a lot of control in what this era will do and how this era operates, because ultimately this is sort of the last chance saloon for the BBC. If this doesn't work, then the show is in a very precarious position. So ultimately I feel like the BBC will sort of take a very active interest in what this new era is, and it's very clear that they want it to be like the Tennant era. Now, I was speaking to some people about this, and I think somebody said that ultimately RTD will have a lot of creative control given that Bad Wolf are involved, and that is something that I sort of forgot about, and that is true, that ultimately RTD will have a lot of creative choice and, you know, freedom to essentially do what he wants. But I still do think that the BBC will want it to be very similar to the Tennant era. And I am worried of us just getting Tennant era V2. These suspicions were sort of made me even more worried when we got the rumours of David Tennant returning as the 14th Doctor, and even though I knew that those rumours were absolute stupidness and obviously were never going to come true, there are still rumours that David Tennant and Catherine Tate will come back for a few specials in 2023, and that's just something that not interests me. I don't like that. It just feels so weird, right? That you're essentially pretending to do a story set in 2008 and just pretending that David Tennant and Catherine Tate are the main stars of this show at the moment, and that just feels so weird to me. Like, it's not 2008 anymore. Like, we need to move on from that. Like, in my opinion, the way it would be to do it is to have all the specials have different doctors and companions, if we're not going to have the 14th Doctor at that time, and tie it into a big episode spanning arc surrounding the 60th anniversary, right? Something's going wrong with time, and have it as a selection of different doctors and companions. That could be cool, but I don't want it to just be random adventures with the 10th Doctor and Donna as if they were just the current Doctor and companion. That's so weird to me, and that's such a backward step. Like, it isn't 2008 anymore, and I think we just need to accept that. I'm fine for them to return in the 60th anniversary, of course. That'd be great. But not outside of any 60th anniversary, you know, thing. That just feels very odd to me. And as I said, we just need to move on from that. I'm very afraid that this RTD era is going to be the same RTD era, or at least very similar. Whereas in my opinion, we've already got enough emulating the RTD era in the Chibnall era, and I've got very sick of it and very bored of that style of Doctor Who, and in my opinion, I just want to change, and I hope that RTD can bring that, but I don't know if A, he will, or B, even if he wants to, if the BBC will allow him to. Now, some fans may say that RTD is good at writing a certain aspect of Doctor Who, so why would you want him to change? Why would you want him to ignore his strengths? But in my opinion, personally, I feel as if there is still a way that we can get the best out of Rusty Davies as a writer, while not completely retreading his previous era. And in my opinion, RTD's biggest strength for me was the character work and the emotions and depths that he could bring to characters and people and situations, right? So I feel like you always got a great emotional sense of Doctor Who during the RTD era. Every emotional decision had weight to it. Every character decision felt as if it had been thought through. Every possible reaction to the Doctor in time travel was explored. You know, every Earth invasion felt impactful because there were characters that you cared about, and their emotional reactions to all these crazy things happening was explored as if it was really happening. A story like Turn Left doesn't work if RTD hasn't fleshed out these characters and really go into depth of how these characters would react to these certain situations, you know, giving them little arcs and personalities that I don't think we ever had before or since the Rusty Davies era. It was a level of character work that Doctor Who doesn't usually do. Now, I think Moffat sort of continued this trend in Series 5. He gave characters a character arc, particularly Amy's character arc, which I thought was really, really amazing. I still do. I think Amy's character arc in that is so thought out, and I will fight anyone who disagrees with me. Harbo, you're mad for not seeing the brilliance in this. But I think after that, Moffat's character arc was particularly iffy. There were some good ideas in there, but it always felt as if his character work was very inconsistent and often would get chucked on the wayside. I think a lot of that is due to the behind-the-scenes issues. The constant push and pull of actors saying they would leave and then not leaving very much meant that their character arcs were very inconsistent, and it was very hard to sort of map out how do these characters actually feel, because their emotional state is changing all the time. And also just a lot of things felt very surface level and ideas that just didn't really go anywhere. Like, I think the idea of Clara coping with her grief by getting addicted to time travel, and the idea of running away from her problems, and essentially using travelling with the Doctor as a way to forget all of her problems and almost try and live a different life, because going back to Earth makes her remember all of the pain, and sort of using that as an allegory for grief and addiction. And that's an amazing idea. Like, honestly, maybe one of the best ideas we've ever had to do with a companion's relationship with the adventures they're going upon. But nothing really happens with it, and it sort of gets dropped immediately, and it's like, yeah, you see what I mean. The Chibnall era, the character work is practically non-existent, which is odd because Chibnall's trying to emulate the RTD era, but he doesn't really understand what made the RTD era work. It wasn't the constant Earth invasions, it was the characters on Earth that made the invasions hit, made the emotions hit and the situation hit. We don't get that with Chibnall. The Earth invasions in Flux felt so hollow that when the Sontarans are invading, I just don't care. There's no stakes to this, like nothing, because ultimately there's no one there reacting to it. There's no one on Earth that I care about, or I think that this is actively hurting them in any way. This is actively changing the Earth. So I feel like that intense emotional character work hasn't been bettered since RTD, and no one's really tried. I feel like that's the best aspect of his Doctor Who looking back, and I think that's a real strength of his and something that desperately needs to return to Doctor Who, and I have no doubt that he will bring that. But ultimately, it's all about taking that great aspect of Doctor Who and applying it to something new. Taking that aspect of RTD and saying, how can we retain that brilliant aspect of yours, but take it into a different direction? Because you can do the character arcs and the different players and making invasions feel impactful, but you don't need to do a retread of every story's on present day Earth and all these finales are on present day Earth and the companions' families, and hey, we have a girl from a council estate, and hey, we have a girl who's just like you from the present day working a dead-end job she doesn't like and she just wants to escape. We don't need that. You can use RTD's, impeccable character work in a different situation, which is ultimately what I want him to explore, because RTD's Doctor Who was very earthbound. So let's take it in a different direction. How about we have RTD tackle an alien companion from an alien culture? I think this would be really great. RTD can really craft this alien civilization, the planet, the people, the political aspect of them, their culture, their society, how they react to certain things, how this person differs from humans, how they see the world, the complications of their life, the constant struggles that they undergo. Perhaps this alien has a certain culture that really disagrees with the TARDIS, perhaps we can really get to know and love the companions, extended family or extended friends, the sort of supporting cast of that companion, and have them all unique on this alien world. I think that would be great. I'm dying for an alien companion, and I think it feels as if RTD could really be the one to tackle this. I think RTD would honestly be amazing at tackling a companion from the past, because when you're tackling a companion from the past, it opens a whole different facet of things that you could do with this companion to make it interesting. How do they react to all these things, these new things? Even the present day is new to them, let alone a bloody time machine, if you know what I mean. You know, how would they react to this? How would they sit with them? You know, you could involve their ideals from their time period. How would a person with these values respond to the galaxy differently? What would their emotional state be going through all of this? What would their friends and family think? People from their time period. How would Victorians or middle-aged people actually respond to the TARDIS? How would they respond to an alien invasion? How would the Doctor respond to having someone who perhaps has some more outdated views than them? You know, all these things that I think could be really interesting and a sort of a goldmine for RTD to tap into. And I really hope we get that, because ultimately RTD's character work is so good. So I think we could put that to good use by, you know, delving into aspects of Doctor Who that hasn't really been touched in New Who at all. Well, it's not, I would say it hasn't really, it just flat out hasn't. So ultimately this is something that we really could do with, and I think you're taking something familiar from the RTD era. His character work is fleshing out not just the companions but their supporting cast to make, you know, just the world of Doctor Who feel incredibly fleshed out and not very hollow. Take that aspect, flip it on its head, and tie that in with something new, like focusing on the past, a companion from the past, or focusing on an alien or an alien society, an alien companion. RTD's character work is great, his fleshing out of different people is great, and making a world feel populated and not hollow, that's great. It's why, in my opinion, if we were to ever get a Time War series, or just like a Gallifrey series in general, I'd want RTD to tackle that, because ultimately I feel as if he could really flesh out the different aspects of Gallifrey and Time Lord society and make it really interesting more than any other writer, because that is his skill. And ultimately I think that he could really do something special with this era of Doctor Who, and by instantly shaking up the formula like that, you're playing to RTD's strength while also making the show feel fresh and a departure not just from his first era but New Who in general. And I feel as if RTD could really do that, and that would be great. Will that happen? I don't know. I think that all depends on sort of how much pressure the BBC puts on RTD to repeat his first era, because you know what the BBC are like. They want to pump that Tennant nostalgia, you know, as much into the show as possible, and they will milk that Tennant cash cow till the cows come home. But ultimately, I think it's all about how much power RTD has, because I believe that he will want to do something different. That's why I think he'll cast a female Doctor, because he hasn't written a female Doctor yet, so he'll want that opportunity to do something new with the character. So I think that RTD will do something new. I mean, I hope he will, and I think there's still ways to take, you know, the fundamentals of what made his era so great while still making it fresh, and I just hope we don't get a repeat. So yes, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please leave a like and drop a sub if you want to see more content from me. What do you think? Do you want RTD's era to be very similar? Are you sort of very nostalgic for it? Do you want that to return? Are you like me, who's very skeptical? You want it to be fresh? And if so, what aspect of RTD's old Doctor Who do you think would really be a great addition to this new era of Doctor Who while keeping things fresh? You know, what should he retain and what ultimately should he disregard? Whatever you think, drop your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. But yes, thank you guys for watching, and of course, a goodbye.